After a brief period of upheaval in Russia, in which President Vladimir Putin's regime was tested perhaps more than at any time in his over 20 years in power, focus has returned to the front lines of the war in Ukraine.
I'd say the counteroffensive has been going slowly. Ukraine's allies certainly hoped for more progress by this point than we've seen.
I can't emphasize enough how difficult it is for a unit to get through this obstacle belt from hell. It's among the toughest military operations that anybody could anticipate.
Here's the situation on the ground right now, and what to expect next on the battlefield. In early June, Ukraine began its long-awaited counteroffensive, with much of the fighting concentrated in the southern regions of Zaporizhzhia and Donetsk.
In those first days, there were big armed formations pushing forward. They were using German Leopard tanks. They were using American Bradley fighting vehicles. The terrain in the Zaporizhzhia region where they're trying to push forward is very unforgiving for an attacking force. It's very agricultural. It's mostly very flat, open fields you can see for miles. So there's very little cover.
На сегодняшний день российская армия отступает на Запорожском, Херсонском направлениях.
Then, on Friday, June 23rd, tensions between the Russian paramilitary organization, known as the Wagner Group, and Russian military leaders boiled over after Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin said the Russian military had killed a huge number of his troops in an airstrike. But as quickly as the revolt had started, it fizzled. Less than 24 hours after the mutiny was launched, the two sides reached what appeared to be a truce.
I don't think the mutiny has had a significant effect of any kind on the counteroffensive. The Ukrainians were in this kind of holding pattern where they're probing for weak spots, and that's what they were doing before the mutiny, and that's still what they're doing.
So, the situation on the ground right now, candidly, there hasn't been a significant amount of progress.
Mark Kimmitt is a retired U.S. Army Brigadier General who served in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Iraq.
There are three attacks, significant attacks going on as the Ukrainians are trying to figure out the soft spots along the front. The first, this is down here by Bakhmut. It has flipped back and forth between the Ukrainian and Russian forces numerous times. If the Ukrainians are able to blow through there, I think that they would go further down to the southeast, as far as possible to the border. The second area where they seem to be putting a lot of pressure on is down here by Zaporizhzhia. Obviously, not only is the nuclear plant significant, but this also gives a breakthrough route that takes you all the way to Berdyansk. If this Ukrainian force was able to break through to Berdyansk, there would be a cutting off of the land bridge up towards the Donetsk. There's a lot of fighting going up here near Vuhledar as well. Same idea. This would give them a route through Donetsk down to Mariupol, or could take it straight to Mariupol.
On June 6th, the Nova Kakhovka Dam on the Dnipro River was breached, releasing a flood of water from Ukraine's largest reservoir.
The Russians, fearing that this was the #1 attack route to split off Crimea and also get out to the water, they flooded the dam down here at Nova Kakhovka. Well, it's starting to dry out again, and the water is going into the Black Sea. That gives the potential for the Ukrainian forces here in Kherson to start the attack.
The slow progress of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, especially in the wake of the recent chaos in Russia, raises questions. Why is the counteroffensive taking so long? And why have the Ukrainians had such limited success breaking through the front lines?
This is 20 kilometers of hell. There's absolutely no doubt that it is probably the toughest fighting outside of the cities.
According to General Kimmitt, part of the reason why the counteroffensive has been so challenging is that the front line is about 600 miles long. What's more, the Russians have had months to prepare their defenses, which are made up of a series of layered obstacles.
What the Ukrainians are trying to do is find the soft spot in that defense. Now, this is just not a couple of barriers. The Russians, like most countries, have what they call a deliberate defense, which is a series of layered obstacles, all to make sure that the Ukrainian forces are stopped as far forward as possible. So you have an overscale Ukrainian vehicle here. That mechanized company is first going to hit a tank trap. What a tank trap is, the whole idea is to have the vehicle go into the trap and then come up, and to get over and out of that, he's going to expose his underbelly right here. The fact is that the softest spot on this vehicle is not the front, is not the side, is not the top, but it's the underbelly. And as it shows its belly, it can be engaged by direct fire weapons. So the next obstacle will be for the troops. It will be this layer of barbed wire that the troops will be caught up in. And here from the trench lines, you have soldiers firing anti-tank weapons, machine guns, and then what's left of that force will try to get in and through the trench line with both dismounted soldiers and mounted soldiers. The vehicles and the troops now have to cross these trench lines. No doubt there's a lot of hand-to-hand fighting, because if the vehicles start coming across and these trench lines can now fire from the side, mayhem. Absolute mayhem on both sides. Those that do get through, and there will be very few, it would probably have to be a follow-on unit that does it through this punched hole that they have, will then hit the mines. These little dots are minefields. Should they make it through there, then they hit the dragon teeth. These are very, very sturdy concrete triangles. They will stop a vehicle if he tries to drive through it. And again, to get over it, he has to expose his belly to get over it. If this unit gets through, then they will be hit by casemated fixed bunkers, much like you saw in Saving Private Ryan. The Russians will be firing artillery, they'll be firing cluster munitions, they'll be attacked by aircraft, helicopters, drones. And so it is not difficult to understand why it's so hard to break through.
Despite limited gains on the front lines, the Russian revolt has provided Ukrainian troops with a morale boost.
One thing that I have heard repeatedly from Ukrainian troops, especially the ones who were fighting in the east, was that it was much tougher coming up against Wagner than it was coming up against regular Russian troops for the most part. That they were more experienced, that they were better trained, that they were braver. But again, they were no longer on the front lines. And they had been an assaulting force all through the war up to this point, and right now Russia's in a defensive posture, and that's, frankly, that's the easier task, is defending.
That morale boost needs to be seen by tangible progress on the ground, and candidly, we're not seeing it since the mutiny started.
More welcome.
In a July 6th interview with ABC News, President Zelensky said the counteroffensive was going to plan.
We
all want to do it faster, the president told me. Every day means new losses.
To help push back Russian forces, on July 7th, the Biden administration said it would be providing cluster munitions to Ukraine.
We will not leave Ukraine defenseless at any point in this conflict, period.
I think the thing to watch is, at some point, we're going to see large formations with dozens of Western tanks. We haven't seen that. And I think that will be when the counteroffensive is really kind of in full swing.
Ниже, ниже, ниже. Оп, народ. Ниже, 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 чуть-чуть.